I'm Indian, just Indian. I'm not South Asian any more than Russians are North Asian. I'm not Asian Indian or East Indian. There are 1.3 billion of us. We don't need a cardinal direction, okay? It's not our fault that Christopher Columbus got lost. Sure, we love our states, but there's strength in numbers. 1 out of every 6 human beings is Indian, so stop dividing us. The British already did that once. And we need to quit saying that we're not Indian because I wasn't born here or sound like this or eat that. Our hearts are Indian. We are feelers. We gave the world the romance of Bollywood films and the music of Ravi Shankar and Zubin Mehta and Lata Mangeshkar and Asha Bhosle and the allure of the Kama Sutra. We are thinkers. We are great at math because we invented numbers. And we're pretty good at letters, too. We are doctors and engineers and techies. And we mean business. We are the world's 3rd largest economy and the wealthiest ethnic group in America. We are huge and efficient. India is all on one time zone. That way everybody in the country is still late, but at the same time. We never invade anyone because we already have everything. Chess, the ruler, the button, wireless communication, arranged marriage, flush toilets, steel, democracy. All us, all India. And you are welcome, world, for yoga and elevating cricket into a multi-billion-dollar sport and making food so good that you sailed across the planet to come have some. Our food is hot. Our country is hot. Our women are hot. Our men are lucky. Where the world prays, we meditate. We practically invented religious tolerance, and we gave you Mahatma Gandhi and pundits and gurus and karma and dharma and kismet and reincarnation. The motherland is magical and mystical, and no matter who you are, you can find yourself here in incredible India. Jai Hind. I am Indian. And I'm late. Told you I was Indian. It's an honor to be here at Google. I actually, I got a degree in materials engineering. That was the big thing. That's how I prepped for comedy. I got a degree in materials engineering. I was going to work in wafer fab. I was going to be a wafer fabrication engineer in the Silicon Valley. And until today, February 19th, 2016, I've disappointed my parents. But today, I'm working in the Silicon Valley. So here I am. So I guess finally my parents can be proud that I'm actually here in the Silicon Valley with you like a good Indian. It's a lot of Indians here today, which is mostly token white guy. Okay, right, it's in the front row. It's still your country. Don't worry. That's great. It still works out, so no problem with that. Don't need to take the country back. Okay. I'm actually giving a TEDx talk in a couple of weeks, and so people have been asking my friends, they're saying, oh, you're speaking at Google, you're giving a talk at Google, are you practicing? So you don't come to Google to practice. This is the Super Bowl, okay? So this is the highlight of my year so far, but it's only, 50 days old, so not a problem. But I'm here to sort of give a speech and break down that video that you saw. How many people, by round of applause, had seen that video? How many people had seen it? Okay. You can clap. It's okay. Let's get some energy going in here. It's Friday. How many people had not seen it? By round of applause. I guess it's a weird thing to applaud for, but yeah, that's fine. No, I'm glad that we hadn't seen it. We wish we wouldn't have seen it, but no. I'm glad that a lot of you had seen it. Some of you hadn't, so that's very cool. But I'm going to explain, I think, to some extent why that video worked. And also tell you a little bit about humor, about stand-up, about jokes. And I want to make it interactive. So if you have questions or if you are bored, well, if you're bored, just leave, I guess. But if you have questions, just feel free to put your hand up or shout something out. I think that's always a good thing to be able to do. It's odd, though, to talk about why something worked as a stand-up comedian, because normally we talk about our failures. We don't really talk about our successes because failure's funny. You know what I mean? It's funny to watch somebody fail. That's why we have fail blogs and hashtag fail and everything. It's a lot funnier if I just get up here and tell you, and that's how I got the girl back to my apartment and I hooked up with her. Okay, Sala. I mean, that's not really a funny story. That's just somebody bragging. So I do want to talk about jokes. I do live in the Valley, and I don't know how many people saw Clueless. This movie is now 20 years old, which is crazy for me to think about. Somebody's nodding back there. Okay, good. So, and which is why I have to speak like an adult. Because I live in the Valley, normally we tend to go up at the end of our sentences. We all kind of talk like this down in LA. And I know in San Francisco you don't like LA, so as long as I make fun of LA, I think I'm going to do pretty well. But but I realize that some of my friends, they're cool. You know, I'm not a cool guy. I've never been a cool guy. Some of my friends, you know, they'll develop cool phrases. They'll say, "Yeah, let's all turn up, yo. Let's all turn up." That's a good look. I want to talk like that, but it just doesn't come out of my mouth like that. I always pick up the annoying phrases. I think she's already leaving. Okay, fine. But no, but I always pick them up because a friend of mine in the Valley, she always says right. She's one of these women who always says right at the end of her sentences, or whenever somebody gets finished speaking, she'll go, anyway. Which is such a beautifully condescending way of speaking. You know, it's so great. I mean, somebody will say, and that's why I'm voting for Donald Trump. Anyway, yeah, just such a great thing to say. It's amazing. And I noticed I had to stop saying the word like. I was saying like constantly. And I realized I had a problem when I said it 3 times in a row, okay? So I actually said like as a question. And some of you understand that, which is sad. We have a problem. It's an epidemic in this country of likes. Too many likes. And I think I'm not at Facebook, so I should stop saying like. But the point being, I think you could like things on YouTube too, right? So. But I realized it's actually on our way here, we were driving, and I saw a guy hitchhiking. I thought he was giving me a like, so it was one of those things. So it does actually happen, I guess, here. So, but no, a friend of mine was trying to ascertain whether I was fond of a certain girl, and so to distinguish between liking her as a friend and liking her as someone more than a friend, I said to him, I asked the question, like. That's when I realized I have a problem. Ouch, you don't want to say like 3 times in a row. Anyway. The point being that I'm going to talk about jokes and where you might find them in society. They appear in different places, and they're more ubiquitous than you might imagine. There's a dollar word for you. You can right-click that one. So I'm going to break down humor, stand-up, jokes, and lessons from I Am Indian. Let's see how far I get. I have a lot of content here, but I'm going to treat this like my dates. I'm just going to see how far I can get. So it's supposed to be a joke. All right, so let's start with humor. The job of a comedian is to make people laugh. It is the simplest job in society. It's not the easiest, but it's the simplest. It's just 3 words. If you also want to say something else, that's great. There are comedians who say funny things, and there are comedians who say things funny. And they are sort of 2 different things. If you have to sort of explain why a comedian is funny, you know, so we showed a little clip of Russell there inadvertently, but sometimes you may say, why is he funny? I don't know, he's just funny. He's just funny, the way he is, he's just funny. But what does it mean? So we gotta break that down a little bit. I don't remember if it was Chris Rock or I who said this. I get us mixed up all the time. But it was really, the goal was to make people laugh in the room and think on the way home. That was really the thing. You don't want people to think while you're here. Otherwise, there's no sound to thinking, right? So I want you to laugh in the room and think on the way home. That's always a big thing for us. And so not all comedians are what we would call sort of social commentators. Some people are just there to get a laugh, and other people want to say something more than something funny. If we go back to medieval times, there was something called a court jester. Round of applause. How many people have heard of a court jester? How many people have at least heard of this concept? Okay, that's good. You can clap. That's fine. Or raise your hand. Either one is okay. So the court. Does anyone know the role of the court jester? Does anyone know what the purpose of the court jester was? Yes. Yes, perfect. To point out the absurdities of society, of what's going around them. Also, it was to convey messages to the king without fear of being beheaded. That was a big thing. Without fear of retribution, that was a really important message or thing for him to be able to do, to convey messages to the king. Today, we have multiple kings. We've got the president, sure. The president can be sort of a king. But we also have the media. We have the Pope. Unless, again, you're Donald Trump. He's going to be a consistent punchline for me, I think, this time. The Pope. We have corporate America, and all of these things that do exist. But one by one, through one scandal or another, it seems like we've lost our kings. If you go all the way back to Richard Nixon and Watergate, in the Vietnam War, the government lost a lot of credibility here in this country. And I have to, in America, we have so many Indians here. I need to make sure that we say in America. The government here lost a lot of credibility. Brian Williams, right? He lost his job for lying. And there was a joke going around that he was joking about or he was actually talking about being involved with the Iraq War, and is the only person who lost his job from lying about the Iraq War, right? So that was a joke that was sort of going around. It was kind of unfair that he sort of exaggerated a little bit. He lost his job. And so the media has kind of, and especially with the rise of talk radio, Fox News, the liberal media, nobody really knows where to get facts from anymore. I don't know how many people saw the movie Spotlight. I'd ask you to clap, but it's not really the kind of movie you clap for. But it pointed out the scandals in the Catholic Church. And so the churches have lost a lot of credibility. We look at violent extremism with Islam and things like that. That's not to impugn a religion, but people now are sort of very scared to talk about religion, whether it's Catholicism, Islam, Hinduism, Christianity, anything. People are sort of on edge, and it's kind of lost some of credibility as well. In 2008, we had the financial crisis, right? That's where, by round of applause, how many people were in the country in 2008? How many people were here in 2008? Okay, so quite a few people were here. And were anyone here, were you working at Google? Anyone still here at Google? Okay, so a few of us were, well, not us, but today I'm working at Google, so not getting paid. But whatever, that's not the point. We're not keeping track. No one's bitter. The point is that in 2008, the economy fell apart and people lost, faith in capitalism, in sort of the mores of society, and what this country is built on. And it's kind of funny because I was pre-med for a while. I was, like I said, an engineer, but I was pre-med. Now I'm post-med. I just skipped the med part, really, altogether. That's where the work was, so I did that. And that was back in 94. I'm going to turn 40 soon, so I'm a little older than, well, maybe I'm younger than you thought. Who knows? I don't know. But then my parents really wanted me to be a doctor. After that, I decided to get out of that, and the Clintons sort of tinkered with the healthcare system. Doctors were not making as much money, and so that's when I went into sort of the wafer fab and semiconductors and PN junctions, and I was going to do that. And then the dot-com bust happened in 2000. That was my senior year in college, and that fell apart. And then I decided, you know what, maybe I'll go into finance. And then in 2008, that whole thing fell apart. So suddenly becoming a comedian did not look so risky. My parents said, go ahead, be a comedian, it's fine. So all of a sudden, it was not such a bad idea at this point in time. Just go ahead with that. And so, after all the kings have been slain, maybe the Jester is the last one standing. I went to a friend of mine's to get that picture, so that was at least good. But you could see that I'm a jester in that as a comedian, but I've stolen a king's crown, so to speak. Many people make arguments, right? I mean, after all, stand-up comedy, a lot of the time, is really just kind of a funny argument. We're sort of trying to get you to see our point of view, but lots of people make arguments, right? We've got the president. You're going to see Obama a lot in this presentation as well. Obama as the president. We have preachers who make arguments all the time, or make, of course, sermons. Columnists, when they write, anything you read tends to be an argument to sort of get you over to that point of view. And then you have CEOs who, of course, get up there and try to get people to invest in the company. And I love the profile. I don't know who wrote it, but this is most famous CEO of world. So he's not just the CEO of Google. He's the CEO of the world. Okay, so I don't know if you knew Earth has a CEO, but I think as we discover more planets, we need to promote somebody, and we thought Google Earth, Google Maps, maybe this guy will be the one. So this 43 years old man is Google CEO, so he's been demoted in his own bio, I guess, evidently. But his full name is Pichai where's the South Indians? Who can read this? Sundarajan. Okay, thank you. With an American accent at that, too. You really showed me up. Born in Tamil Nadu in India, which I love how it puts it in parentheses in case you didn't know where Tamil Nadu is, but maybe some people don't. But now it's kind of old news that people are getting their news not just from traditional media. We're getting it from The Daily Show. People will tell you that they don't just go to watch Trevor Noah or John Oliver or Dennis Miller or Bill Maher for jokes. I mean, a lot of the shows they're kind of serious. I mean, there are laughs, sure, but a lot of the times it's serious. So we're getting that, and we're seeing that people are getting their news that way. If you doubt the power of a joke, some of you will know this man and some of you won't. His name is Hannibal Buress. And Hannibal Buress is the one who told the joke about Bill Cosby, which led to Bill Cosby's now being indicted, and he's going to go to court. Hannibal Buress, he made a joke, and in fact, several women had come forth to talk about Bill Cosby. Their concerns were not taken seriously, which is a horrible thing in society. And it took a stand-up comic, and some people point out a black man stand-up comic to say and make the joke about Bill Cosby. And he even said, well, Bill Cosby, yeah, but you raped women. And he said this in a stand-up act, and it got laughs, but it led to the investigation of Bill Cosby. This was a joke that revealed the truth, and really kind of a scary thing. But I think that's what's really great about stand-up comedy, is nobody is bigger than the field. No matter how big a stand-up comic gets, the person is still a subset of humor, right? I mean, if you look at Michael Jordan, he transcended basketball. He was bigger than basketball. There were people in Africa. There are certainly people in India. There's in Australia that didn't follow the NBA. They didn't really follow the Chicago Bulls, but almost everybody knew who Michael Jordan was. Barack Obama, again, somebody who transcended politics, talking about hope and change. But nobody transcends humor, and I think that was sort of what's great about stand-up comedy, is we use it to expose the truth. And that's the idea, even if it's about other stand-up comedians. And in that case, Hannibal Buress doing a joke about Bill Cosby, we even eat our own. I think that's a good thing, which is probably why his name is Hannibal. I worked hard on that slide, so you should probably laugh harder. But anyway, the point is that, no, it's recently, and you'll appreciate this, Facebook board member Mark Andreessen, he tweeted, I'm sure a lot of people in this room have followed this story. His tweet sort of, again, Donald Trump-like in nature, kind of got more and more out of control, and until he finally tweeted, anti-colonialism has been economically catastrophic for the Indian people for decades, why stop now? That was supposed to be a joke, and you hear how hard you're laughing? Yeah, right, not at all. Nobody was laughing on Twitter. Nobody was laughing about this joke that apparently was made. But it revealed, a lot of people think Facebook's intentions, or a lot of companies' intentions, to go and sort of have this colonial approach to what they still see as a third world country. And so that was a joke that was not funny, but a lot of people think it revealed the truth. So there should be no doubt that jokes are very, very powerful, and they can work to our benefit or to our detriment. Some good examples. A lot of people, I'm sure, know Tina Fey. She and Amy Poehler hosted the Golden Globes in 2015, which they've done a few times. One of her best jokes was when George Clooney was in the audience, and he had his wife, Amal, there with him. And Tina Fey clowned him by saying, Amal, his wife, is a human rights lawyer who worked on the Enron case, was an advisor to Kofi Annan regarding Syria, and was selected for a 3-person UN commission investigating rules of war violations in the Gaza Strip. So tonight her husband is getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, right? So exactly, I mean, it was a really, really funny moment, and it really kind of threw men under the bus, it threw actors under the bus, kind of what are we worshiping in society that she's so accomplished? What does the person have to do to get recognition? And George Clooney is the one getting all the good looks there. So that was a great example. There's something called the White House Correspondents' Dinner that happens every year, and Stephen Colbert in 2006 roasted George W. Bush by saying, now I know that there are some polls out there saying that this man, and he points to George W. Bush, has a 32% approval rating. But guys like us, we don't pay attention to the polls. We know that polls are a collection of statistics that reflect what people are thinking in reality. And reality, as we all know, has a well-known liberal bias, right? So it really just kind of roasted George W. Bush and said, you know what, this is, we're going to point out something that's true that you may not be acknowledging. Still one of my favorites, and my favorite comedian of all time, Chris Rock. A great example when he said, you don't need no gun control. You know what you need? We need some bullet control. We need to control the bullets. That's right. I think all bullets should cost $5,000. $5,000 for a bullet. You know why? Because if a bullet costs $5,000, there would be no more innocent bystanders. Right? And so he does this whole bit about how people would be a lot more careful. They would shoot somebody and take their bullet back because it was still their property. So it was a really good example of a problem. A lot of people watched that and they kind of went, yeah, why don't we do that? That's actually a really good solution. That was in 1999. Then, if you go all the way back to 1989, I don't know how many people saw the movie When Harry Met Sally. This is Billy Crystal from that movie. We couldn't use the image from the movie because all these images are approved. We did the right thing. We did not go after copyrighted images. So we had to get one when he's, too old to sue us. I don't know what it is, really, but I guess. If you remember the, I'll get sued for that though, but there's a point in When Harry Met Sally, when Harry's talking to Sally, and he just says, they're walking along the streets in New York, and he says, really, but what's so hard about finding an apartment? What you do is you look in the obituary section. You see who died, find out where they lived, and tip the doorman. What they could do to make it easier is combine the two. You know, Mr. Klein died yesterday, leaving behind a wife, 2 children, and a spacious 3-bedroom apartment with a wood-burning fireplace. So we kind of watch that and go, yeah, they should do that, especially here in San Francisco. You could really use that. I think in the Bay Area with prices going out of control, maybe this would be a good thing to have. So it's examples of comedians telling jokes, but sort of revealing solutions, revealing truths, and things that are a little bit deeper. This phenomenon of using humor and truth is not surprising because they're very closely related. Mary Poppins, and no presentation is complete by a nearly 40-year-old man without using Mary Poppins in it. Mary Poppins once sang a song that said, "A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down." And I think that medicine is truth, and the sugar is the humor. So, you know, in every speech, you try to think about what your bumper sticker would be. So that would be my bumper sticker. Humor is a spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine of truth go down. I hope you don't drive a Prius. It's not going to fit. So I was trying to get it down a little bit shorter than that, as short as I am, but didn't really happen. But I think that's sort of the thrust of my speech overall, and the idea that we can use humor to get across the truth. And again, this is not a new idea. You know, Dick Clark in 1959, he said, humor is always based on a modicum of truth. Have you ever heard a joke about a father-in-law? Right, so he's trying to get across the idea of that. You go back to 1884 with Nietzsche even saying, we should call every truth false which was not accompanied by at least one laugh. And we can go 500 years before that to Geoffrey Chaucer, and he wrote, "Many a true word is spoken in jest." So using humor to convey truth makes a lot of sense. In fact, a lot of businesses, it's not really, well, I guess politics is a business, but we just like this picture. But 4 living presidents at the time, a lot of businesses are using comedians now. They're using improvisers, using writers to, you know, warm up the audience or, you know, get people to brainstorm and play games and all that sort of thing. And it's great. It's a great idea. But we're also using stand-up comedians, and stand-up comedians are a little bit different because we're saying something. I'm not saying that improvisers and writers are not trying to, but wait, no, that is completely what I'm saying. Stand-up comedians are better than improvisers and writers because we actually have to come up with it, you know, in advance. I mean, improv is sort of impressive that they came up with anything, but stand-up comedy sometimes, if it's just a blank room, they're just sort of looking at you going, you've had 6 months to come up with this, and this is what you're telling us? So it's a level of expectations sort of game. So I actually have a business where we hire stand-up comedians to help marketers generate insights for their brands. No big deal. It's just really, really successful. It doesn't matter. The point is that we actually had a comedian come in, not Jerry Seinfeld, but Jerry Seinfeld made a movie called Comedian. And if you're interested in this sort of topic, I see some of you nodding, this movie was really something else because it's a documentary, and the tagline for it is, "Where does comedy come from?" Did you see it? Yeah, really great movie. Where does comedy come from? So he's the main character in it because he made it, just like I'm the main character in my own speech. That'd be weird if I weren't. But there's one other comedian in it, and his name is Orny Adams. We had Orny Adams fly out to a company. I'm not going to tell you which company, but we'll keep that part confidential. But there was a part where the underlings at the company, I don't think they went by those titles, but they wanted to convey to the king, to the GM, that they were not really big fans of the name of one of their products. They had changed the name. And so we had Orny Adams go on stage and just clown this brand. He just gets up there and he goes, "You took something that I understood, like Greek yogurt, and you changed it to oikos. What the hell is oikos?" And you could see the whole place go nuts, and you could see the GM sort of nod his head. And we got the idea across to the king. We used a stand-up comedian to get the truth across because everyone underneath the GM was a little bit scared to convey that. So kind of a real-life example of that, how that can work. I wanted to ask, do you think stand-up comedy is hard? Do you think it's hard or easy? Hard. Does anyone think it's easy? Okay, you can't say that because otherwise I'll have you come up and do it. So it's sort of a mixed matter, a stacked deck, I guess. I'll tell you why it is. The whole idea with talks at Google is to break things down, right? So let me tell you why it's difficult. First of all, you can see us do it while we do it. That's odd. I could ask anyone here, are you good at your job? I could say, are you good at your job? You're going to say yes, right? Because I'm not going to see you do it. So I'm just going to assume you're good, right? You can tell me all day long, and you have multiple chances. If you mess up on your spreadsheet or whatever, you can fix it, right? But I can't do that. You're going to see me do it. I can't speak up here and then try to talk to someone after the show and say, I'm this really amazing comic. We just saw you eat it for 45 minutes. You suck, right? So you can see it happen. I mean, this is why I don't understand, doctors, and maybe I'm just bitter because like I said, I'm post-med, but I don't know what doctors do. I don't know what their job is still. It's just totally, we're staying with a couple of friends who, my friend Alok, who is a doctor, he's an ophthalmologist, and I just don't really get what his job is, okay? I go to the doctor, and first of all, you see the nurse, okay? The nurse does 90% of the doctor's job, okay, right? You see the nurse first. The nurse does blood pressure, weight, most of the stuff. You spend most of the time with the nurse. I don't know if we have any people who were nurses or aren't any Malayalis. Okay. So they're all nurses. It's true. I'm glad you laughed. Sometimes people groan. Like, it's not bad. I'm just saying, But I don't know if they're nurses or registered nurses. I don't know. They're all the only people in society. I don't understand a registered nurse. I don't get that. They're the only people in society who are registered. Where's this registry? I don't get it. Them and sex offenders. They're the only people who are registered, I guess. But anyway, the point, you could groan on that one. So point is that the nurse does 90% of it. Then the doctor comes in, and I've never had an appointment with a doctor that lasts more than 2 minutes. Okay, it's like a lot of things in my life, I guess, but it's 2 minutes long, and it's never a consecutive 120 seconds. The doctor keeps leaving the room. The person, he keeps getting up. I don't know, what's he doing? Does he not know the answer, or is he looking up stuff on WebMD, or I don't know is he Googling it? I don't know what he's doing. What's he doing? And then it's his turn to headline. It's his turn to perform, to do surgery. That's the hardest part of a doctor's job. And then they knock us out. We don't even get to see them do it, right? They can mess up, whatever. And they don't even do it. An anesthesiologist does that. They don't even do that. Then they prescribe a pill, and a pharmacist gives you the pill. So I don't know what a doctor does. They're general contractors, okay? I don't think they have a job, really. I think that they gather a bunch of people in a room. They're general contractors. That's their job. That's the difference there. The second thing, what's difficult about stand-up is we come up with this whole thing ourselves, right? I have no one to blame up here. I can't say, well, Tanvi, you wrote it. No, obviously, I wrote it, I directed it, I produced it, I edited it, so I get the credit or the blame, depending, right? So that's pretty great. Although you get credit for turnout, so nice job on that. Yeah, good work on that. That's really impressive. The other weird thing about stand-up comedy is you don't know the genre. This is really weird. If you ever hear someone go, let's go to a stand-up comedy club, maybe you're specifically going to see Russell Peters or Chris Rock or Dave Chappelle or Jerry Seinfeld, but a lot of the time people aren't. They just go to a comedy club, and you have no idea. If you go to a concert, it's different, right? You know if it's hip-hop or classical or country or if it's EDM. You know specifically what it is, but that's not true for stand-up. Same thing with movies. You want to go to the movies, right? It's a big thing. Is it a comedy? Is it a drama? Is it an action? You get up, and in the stand-up comic, he could be clean, could be dirty, could be sarcastic, could be ironic, could be slapstick, all these different things. You have no clue. So the audience usually has no idea what you're about to do. A lot of my friends in LA are actors. We shot this. I was very proud of it. Rajiv left to his own devices. I'm on my phone. It's brilliant. Anyway, the point being that a lot of my friends in LA are actors. And it's always funny because it's very popular to say that I'm great at drama. I'm a great dramatic actor or actress, but I'm really bad at comedy. And to me, it always sounds like a cop-out because it's drama, there's no measurement, right? In comedy, there are metrics. You can count the laughs. So I think that's what's different about it is if you don't get laughs, then it wasn't funny, right? And that's true even with like going to a concert. Like I'm saying, if you go to a jazz concert, I don't know how many people have been to a jazz concert, right? No one knows what's going on, right? You don't know if it's good or bad. You just have to act like you know. It's like drinking wine up here in wine country. It's so good. I don't know. I have no concept. No one knows. No one knows if it's good, but you have to act. It's like the emperor's new clothes. That's how the kings are getting slain, I guess. But it's true. And a lot of people have walked out of a jazz concert and gone, I guess that guy was good. I mean, people were clapping. But no one's ever walked out of a comedy show and gone, that guy was hilarious, but I didn't laugh, right? No one has ever done that, right? If you laughed, it's funny. If you didn't, it's not. We have to watch what we say. This man, Michael Richards, known as Kramer, some of you are nodding and laughing and maybe groaning, but he got in trouble at the Laugh Factory. I was actually on that stage on a Tuesday, and this happened on a Friday, 3 days after I performed. Hopefully I didn't jinx the stage or anything like that, but he got up there and he said some really, really horrible racist stuff, and that was the end of his career. And so I think what's really scary for us is anything we say, especially with society being really touchy as it's gotten, it's not just that I could walk the room. I could tell a really bad joke and you could all just leave. But in this day and age, and this is being on YouTube and all those sorts of things being taped for YouTube, you could lose your career. It could be over. If you say something really, really awful that people just kind of get horribly offended by, you could lose your career. So that's another reason it's scary. And finally, a lot of people love to ask, do you practice in front of a mirror? It's a question I get all the time. People go, do you practice in front of a mirror? And no, I don't. I don't practice in front of a mirror because practicing in front of a mirror is like walking. It's easy to do. Anybody could just walk on the sidewalk, right? It's not, well, not anyone. There are some people who can't, but there are a lot of people can, okay? Babies, that's what I was gonna say. But if you look at public speaking, right? We've all done this. We've all had to speak publicly, right? And you ran it at home and it went so well, you ran it in the car, you had a joke or you had something you were gonna do, and then you tell it to people and they're nothing, right? Just nothing. And you go, what happened? It's because when you get in front of people, it's like you're on a balancing beam. The audience is the height. All of a sudden, there's a consequence, right? You ever think that you see a ledge, you go, well, if the ledge were on the ground, I could walk it. You can walk in a straight line. But it's very hard to walk if it's up in the air. Why? Because there's consequences. You could fall. You could hurt yourself. And if that's public speaking, then stand-up comedy is walking a tightrope, okay? It is a completely different game because this is dangerous. This looks really scary. I don't know if this person has a net under him or her or not, but this looks really scary. And what's hard about this also, there are outside elements, okay? So the outside elements and whether this person is going to do this, you've got the rope element as well. With a balance beam, right, you're in one place. It's not going to move. You may move. This, you're moving and the balance beam / rope is moving. So that's the element of timing. And that's what's so difficult. So practicing in front of a mirror does nothing. I mean, the audience is going to laugh. It's you. You can laugh and see the audience laugh. It's a mirror, right? So it's not really that hard to do. I think I do want to talk a little bit about jokes. At their core, jokes are 1, 2, 4. That's what a joke is. At its just most basic. Meaning that when you saw me going 1, 2, you thought maybe I was going to say 3, and I said 4, you can now look at it and go, oh, you were doubling the numbers. That's what you were doing. And that's what a joke is, right? After the person tells the punchline, you kind of go, oh, yeah, okay, I should have been able to figure that out, right? So you kind of feel, oh, yeah, that's right, that's where. And so it's the element of surprise. It's not 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 7. Okay, so I had a friend of mine explain to it. He goes, oh, jokes are A, B, G. I go, no, that doesn't make any sense. 1, 2, 7 isn't a thing. 1, 2, 3, if I got up here and said 1, 2, 3, you'd all look at me and go, yeah, so we can count, dude. I mean, what we came here out of our time, took our times out of our schedule to watch you count. So basically the idea is that jokes are 1, 2, 4. Every joke actually contains a setup and a punchline. You go from point A to point B. And there's actually a comedy club here in San Francisco, and it's called The Punchline. I don't know how many people have actually been to The Punchline. Okay, from you're not, some people have been to The Punchline. I performed there. I do really well at The Punchline, but I think I could do a lot better at a club called The Setup. You know what I mean? If all I had to do was just set up jokes, I would be way better. It's way easier to find setups than punchlines. I don't know if you, how many people have been to a 3D movie? By round of applause, how many people have been to a 3D movie? You know how they give you the glasses, the red and blue glasses in the beginning of the film? Have you ever done this thing where in the middle of the movie, maybe you take the glasses off your face just to see what the screen looks like without the glasses? Yeah, it's weird. You ever drive along in your car and look down at your odometer and maybe it's 9,993 or 4, maybe 1999. You're getting very, very close and you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to see it turn 10,000 or 100,000 on this. I'm going to see it turn. Then maybe you go through a drive-through or Starbucks or something and you look down and it's like 10,003 and you go, oh, I missed it. Anyway, I've got about 20 of those that I'm not going to subject you to, but it is very, very easy, and I think in life, to find setups. It's much, much harder to find punchlines. 1, 2 is the setup, and I believe there were 5 reasons why I Am Indian worked. Why it was shared by Bollywood stars, why it was played in front of Narendra Modi, why it was seen 50 million times. Why is that? And it's only 500,000 on YouTube, but if someone here can jack that up, that would help me a little bit. So if you can just sort of play with those numbers, that's why I really came here. But no, it got shared a lot on Facebook, and it got shared a lot on WhatsApp. I think especially in India, it got shared on WhatsApp a lot. That was really kind of the thing. I didn't even know a video could go viral on WhatsApp. I wasn't even aware of that phenomenon, but that's kind of what happened. So I think what's important for anyone, if you're trying to communicate a message, so how does this now become useful to some extent once you know about humor and stand-up and jokes? When you're trying to convey a message, whether it's an email, whether it's a commercial, whether it's a product launch, whether it's anything, I think there are principles that we could all use. And of course, I'm going to say humor as the number one since I'm a comedian. But how do we find a setup? When I said jokes are 1, 2, 4, for some of you just joining us, I said jokes are 1, 2, 4. 1, 2 is a setup, right? And people always ask, well, how do you find these setups? Where do you find them? You know, how do you do that? Well, that's the same thing as asking a comedian, where do you get your material from? It's the exact same question, and it's a really good question. We don't look for what's funny. I think that's a big misnomer. I think a lot of people think that we walk around looking sort of with a pad and a pen and kind of, you know, trying to note down behavior that we think is funny. That's could not be further from the truth. We look for things that are incongruent. We look for incongruity or incongruence or whatever the word is. I don't know what the noun is. It doesn't matter. You don't need to know that stuff for this job. It only deals in language. Why would I know that? But we deal in incongruity. We look for what's different, right? So if you looked at this grid of black and white, and we'll all go to the pink one, right? We'll all go to the red dot, not just because we're Indian, but we'll all go to that. And it's a bindi, yaar, tilak. But no, the idea is we're looking at this and all our eyes go there, right? Why? Because it's different. And you look at it and you go, that looks funny, right? Just like when somebody asks you and you're not feeling well, you might say, I feel funny. What you mean is you feel different from how you usually feel. And so we sort of play around with that. That's a big thing. What a lot of marketers will call that is or weigh in. You know, a lot of times you have to make a commercial or reach somebody. How are you going to find this consumer when and where she's receptive? And I worked at Procter & Gamble for years at P&G, Punjabis and Gujaratis. And I worked there for a long time. Actually, now is as good a time as any to tell you this. I'm Punjabi. That's my wife sitting right there. So we just got married 6 months ago. She's Gujarati. So yeah, thank you. I did it for the jokes, really. But yes, we just got married, and thank you for the jaded applause. But okay, that's really great. Some of the guys are going, oh, so she's taken. Okay, so why I stayed this long? We can leave now. I'll turn around again. But why, when I made that video, when I made I Am Indian, this guy's laughing. I say it's true, right? So there's something to that, I guess, hopefully. So the reason I made the video, why did I make I Am Indian? What was sort of the way in? I was sick and tired of calling myself South Asian. I just got tired of it. I know it's inclusive. I know it connects into race better to say South Asian than to say Indian. But I really meant what I said in the video. There's 1.3 billion of us. We don't need a cardinal direction. Don't call us East Indian. Okay, we're Indian. That's it. It's not our fault Christopher Columbus got lost. That's why I said that line. And it really bothered me. It really irked me. And I felt that as long as we kept saying South Asian, we're going to lose Indian as a word. People just aren't going to say it anymore in this country. And I thought, that's not okay. And I got tired. The one that really pissed me off was Asian Indian. I actually wrote a couple of State Farm commercials, and Omi Vedya was the star of those. And I realized that not that ad agency, but they were telling us that agencies a lot of the time will have people check a box, and they refer to us as the Asian Indian market. And I was just thinking, where do you think India is? It is in Asia. You're just saying it twice. I mean, I'm not a male man, right? I mean, I'm sort of dressed like one, I guess you could say, but just to say man-male the other way. But no, but I think we don't have to say it twice and just get more general or something like that, you know? So I knew there was something there that was incongruent to me. There was something about saying South Asian and East Indian that really bothered me. And then what we do is we write the jokes around the facts. We don't write facts around jokes. We don't try to find stuff like that and write jokes, because you stay in Sillyville. If you really want to say something, we don't kind of go, what's funny about this? We say, what are we making fun of? Who's the victim? What are we really trying to poke fun at? And in this particular video, it was making fun of ignorance. That was a big thing. And then I already explained the versus the feathers, dots versus feathers. So a lot of people, I know, I wanted to use one of the Golden State Warriors since I'm up here, but we couldn't find any unrestricted images of Steph Curry. But this specific one was, and it's an alley-oop, right? That's kind of what a joke is as well. It's a setup and the punch. And a lot of times, you know, we'll have a miscommunication in life and when you're trying to speak to somebody, and you'll tell something and somebody will just completely miss it, right? We've all sent emails. We got no response, right? You sent it to 50 people. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to check my inbox. No one wrote back, right? And a lot of the time was because the person missed the setup. setup. They didn't get the context of what you were trying to say. And so if this ball is an errant toss and it goes away from the player, he's not going to be able to slam it, right? You need to set it up properly, and then you get the punch. Then you get the impact. There's actually a third part to jokes. So there's a setup, the punchline, and I'll tell you a little thing that a lot of people who are not stand-ups don't know. There's a third part to a joke called a tag, and there's a fourth part called walkout when he leaves the room. A third part called the tag. It's usually further explanation or an act out. You see a lot of comedians say a line and then they'll act it out or do an accent or something like that. A great example is Seinfeld has a bit about laundry, and he talks about washing laundry. And his joke is, now they show you how detergents take out blood stains. A pretty violent image there. I think if you got a t-shirt with a blood stain all over it, maybe laundry isn't your biggest problem. Maybe you should get rid of the body before you do the wash, right? So that's a beautiful joke, as you can tell by the laughter. The setup is, now they show you how detergents take out bloodstains. A pretty violent image there. The punchline is, I think if you've got a t-shirt with bloodstains all over it, maybe laundry isn't your biggest problem. And then after the laugh, he tags it again, and this is why he's one of the greatest. Maybe you should get rid of the body before you do the wash. That's the tag. And he even has another tag where he says, maybe you should try getting the harpoon out of your chest first, right? So again, right, it's another laugh. So it's another way of keeping and getting these things. This is where it gets interesting, finally. I used to work, like I said, at Procter & Gamble. This is the structure of every commercial you've ever seen. I still say we. We were the world's largest, we're still the world's largest advertiser. I just don't work there anymore. But world's largest advertiser, making a lot of commercials. And every commercial you've seen is structured just like a joke. It's structured as an insight, a benefit, and a reason to believe. Every ad is like that. It doesn't have to go necessarily in that order, but now when you watch commercials, you'll start to notice this. An insight is also known as an accepted consumer belief, and it gets us all on the same page. Something like, no guy likes the irritation that comes with shaving, right? And then all the guys are sort of nodding their heads and going, that's right, unless you're you and you don't shave very often, I should say, not very well, very often. I'm really looking scruffy there. So, but no, we don't like the irritation that comes with shaving. The benefit would be the new Gillette Fusion razor provides a close shave without razor burn, right? So now guys kind of go, oh, cool, okay, so that's the benefit. And the reason to believe could be that's because Gillette has added an 89th blade to its Illudium Pew 36 explosive space modulator, or whatever the blades now have. There's so many blades. But I think that's what's really interesting, is that jokes and ads have the same structure. A joke is a setup, punch, and a tag, and an ad is an insight, benefit, and reason to believe. So a lot of people, after I made that video, a lot of people said, oh, I liked your commercial, which I thought was really interesting. I thought, well, it wasn't really a commercial, but I get now why people say that it was a commercial. It's just like when in India, when we go to India, I did a tour there. I've done a few tours there. It's really funny because Indians in India have a different way of explaining that they like your videos. Here people will come up to me and they'll say, oh, I saw your YouTube video. I liked your. They're in India. They say, they're so sweet. They say, I saw your YouTubes. I love your YouTubes, yaar. I love your YouTubes. It just sounds very personal, like you've seen my tubes. I don't have any tubes. I mean, I'm post-med, I realize that, but I don't have any tubes, so. Folks, I'm going to stop there because even though I have more things to say, I want to probably leave a little bit of time for Q&A. And if there are any other main things that I wanted to say, we're going to do a Q&A here, and then I think we'll take some questions from the audience as well. But just so I can wrap it up, I could say that the second thing was making an emotional connection. So the first thing was using humor. The second thing was making an emotional connection, which I think that video did. And a lot of people felt that it came from my soul, and I think that's an important thing, is when we write things and convey things, we aspire with our head and we sort of pine with our hearts. We crave with our bodies, right? But we yearn with our souls. And so if you want to make something that really, I don't know when I turned into Deepak Chopra, but the idea is, I even had a slide for that. That's too bad. I had a slide with me and Deepak Chopra, but oh well. I don't know how many of these other slides I really wanted to show you, but that's okay. There were more, but why don't we stop there just in the interest of time, and we'll go ahead and we'll do the Q&A. Okay, sure. Thanks. All right, thank you. There you go. There's me as Gandhi. I at least got to show you that. So that's me as Gandhi. Okay. Sure.
So you told us that you did a lot of TV commercials. Is there any favorites? And do you want to tell us a story about how you wrote it? Or
I think the the ones that we wrote for, so a friend of mine and I in LA, we co-wrote a couple of State Farm commercials. And they were played by Omi Vidya. He was the actor in them. And again, one of them was called, it was an Indian wedding. And it rains, and they have to somehow, all jump in a car, and they're just wondering if they have insurance and that sort of thing. So I think just the spectacle of a huge Indian wedding was kind of a cool thing to do. So I think that's what's really great about this job, is that you are always looking for how you can express your jokes. And that was actually another point that I'll just go to my talking points like I'm Marco Rubio. But, so let it not know. Barack Obama knew exactly what he was doing. I'll just keep saying that. But, that's the idea. As a commercial, we were always trying to reach people and saying, where are they receptive? Should it be a TV ad? Should it be a billboard? Should it be an internet pop-up? Please, God, no. And jokes are the same way, right? Where you kind of go, does this work as a tweet? Does it work as an Instagram picture? Does it work, on stage? Is it a sketch, or is it a commercial? So I think part of being a comedian is being able to tell jokes in a wide variety of media. And so a lot of people ask me that. So how do you go over in India? And I think it works. I think largely because I try to talk about our. There's an old quote that says we bond according to our similarities and we grow according to our differences, which I think is beautiful, and I love that. But I think that a lot of comedy is about bringing people together. What do we all do together? And I find that stuff to be a lot more fun than the stuff that sort of divides us apart and go, well, I disagree with this or disagree with that. So I think in that way, being able to write commercials is kind of cool because you get to express something in a visual medium.
How did you get into comedy? Like saying you were a materials engineer, then you worked with P&G as a marketer.
Right.
Like, what was your into comedy?
I volunteered at a tennis tournament because I'm Indian, and you have to do something with tennis, right? It has to, in this country especially. It's cricket in India, but here the Indians who couldn't play football, we basically had to do something with tennis. And so I worked in the player locker room in Cincinnati, which is one of there are the 4 Grand Slams in tennis. I don't know how much everyone knows about tennis. The 4 Grand Slams, and then it's the 3rd largest tournament after that. So it's one of the biggest tournaments in the world. And I was working in the locker room, got to see the players, a little bit too much of the players, but and I actually was going to go on stage for the very first time. But then I ended up talking to Pete Sampras, who at the time was the world's #1 player, and I did my stand-up act for Pete Sampras. So it was the first time I ever did stand-up comedy. It was just for him and his doctor and a trainer and my supervisor and one other guy, and I did stand-up for him. And it was really this mind-blowing experience. And it went kind of, not that well, but it gave me the confidence of going with it. I mean, I had pictures and posters of him all over my room, him and Andre Agassi, and to me, to be able to do that and get through it gave me a lot of confidence to say, okay, let me go up and enter this contest in Cincinnati, which is where I'm from. And I entered a contest, I made the semifinals, and the next year I won it. So sort of had this knack to be able to do it. But I wasn't really sure I wanted to do it for a job because I think being Indian was a real sort of, you kind of go, well, that's not, you have to be an engineer, you have to be a doctor, I mean, you can't go do that as a job. And that's not a real thing, but and even when I would go to comedy clubs, I would never look at the guys and go, oh, I'm going to be that guy. I never thought that would be something I would do. So the fact that I do it full time it's still kind of a mind-blowing thing. I'm surprised that I get not paid to come here. Next question. I'm not better. I'm not better. Not better.
To give others context, Rajiv also hosts shows or motivation sessions with corporations and NFL players. What's people's reactions when they say when the company tells them, hey, a comedian is here to motivate you guys to do your job better?
I think people at first are kind of going, well, what's a comedian going to tell us? I think that's a natural sort of thing. But I think it's funny that you bring up the NFL because performing for football players was an interesting experience. And I actually had to do a 3-hour, some of you are going, well, I can't even take this guy for an hour, a 3-hour session on personal branding. And it was all about life after the NFL. And these were rookies. These were players who were, first of all, you have a 1 in 16,000 chance of making the NFL. And that's if you played high school football, not you, not me. It's not one, it's like Powerball numbers for us, okay? But for these guys who actually have the speed and the strength and all that, they just I don't know why I picked on you for that, but anyway, point being that he's just like, I don't want to play in the NFL. I'd rather be Sachin Tendulkar or something. But it's a very difficult thing, and so it's not a receptive audience at all. I mean, these guys just got to the NFL. They're all pumped up. Let me talk to you about life after football, after you don't make it, right? I mean, what is that? I mean, it could be not a more hostile audience you could imagine. It's a 3-hour mandatory session. They don't necessarily want to be there. And at the time, I was 32, and I was a 32-year-old scrawny Indian nerd talking to 22-year-old black and white jocks. You know, just football players, guys who could just stuff guys like me into a locker kind of thing, right? And I won them over because I was trying to talk and they're just stone-faced, just nothing, you know, just when do we, you know, that kind of thing. I just tried to talk to one of the guys and I just said, so what do you do, man? He goes, I just go out to clubs and stuff, you know. And I said, oh, do you dance? He goes, no, I don't dance. I go, you just roll up your pants and do the rockaway? Which was a line from a hip-hop song that was popular at the time. And he goes, oh, okay. And then I got him, right? So there was something I had to say that I had to go to him to say, I speak your language, right? I mean, it's the same thing wherever you perform, whether it's the Middle East or India or it's Alabama, you have to say something. I mean, I got out in front of Alabama, 400 white and black people, maybe 10 black people, 390 white people, no brown people anywhere to be found. Alabama, I mean, not even Birmingham, but outside of Birmingham. And I got up there and I went out there and I just, in an Indian accent, I just said, Roll Tide, and they went nuts, right? Because they love the Alabama Crimson Tide. They went crazy. Oh my God, this guy knows, right? So you need to say something specific that will get people, you know. I mean, I did do a joke about how, you know, I was trying to, you know, when I was on shoddy.com. It's not really shoddy, it's shoddy, S-H-O-D-D-Y, shoddy.com, and or shady.com, right? And so I was on that, and it asked all these questions and asked if I was a Manglik, and I didn't know what a Manglik was, you know. So I looked it up online. And I always did a joke about how I felt bad looking up my culture online, but so many Indians work at Google, it's like asking your uncle, right? So it was this big thing, a big laugh line that works everywhere but at Google, apparently. Okay, great.
Okay, I would open up the house for some questions before I go and rant on. So. Anybody has any questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
You talked about having a knack for this thing. Do you think people can learn this?
Can people learn this? So it's sort of the age-old question of is it innate, right? Is it congenital, or is it, that's not a bad word, congenital, or is it is it born leaders? People always have the same question. I think I just read a book called On Writing by Stephen King, and it's a great book, even if you're not into writing, because he breaks things down so specifically. He tells you, hey, it's different things for different people, but you look at his bio, and it says Stephen King has written 50 books, all of them worldwide bestsellers. Okay, I'm going to listen to this guy, right? Because I was telling somebody, he goes, well, that works for him. I go, you haven't even published anything. Yes, that works for Stephen King. I think I'm going to read this. And he talks about where he puts his desk, how many hours a day to write, how many words. He really breaks it down. But he basically gives you 4 categories of bad, competent, good, and great. And he says people like Ernest Hemingway, great. Just great. Just touched by God. There's nothing that you can, he doesn't have to read this book. And then there are people who are just bad. They're just bad, And because I get people asking me that question, they go, how do I get better? And I watch their first time on stage and I go, I was never that bad. I'm sorry, I was just never that bad. I mean, I watched my first set and I go, that's pretty good, right? I mean, I had some game. I had some chops. But what he talks about is, if you're bad, you're bad. If you're great, you're great. But the book is supposed to take you from competent to good. And he calls himself good, right? So he's saying Hemingway. So I would say, Chris Rock, George Carlin, Dave Chappelle, these guys are great. Then you have the people who are bad, right? Who just, we've seen them. Then you've got people who are competent, and then you're trying to get good. I would call myself competent, and I would say I'm trying to get good. But to say I'm going to get great, that's sort of, wow, that's amazing. You're going to get great. I mean, how many people come to Google and go, I'm going to be Sundar. I'm going to be Sundar Pichai, right? I mean, you're going to. I mean, and they take entrepreneurial classes. I don't think entrepreneurs have to take entrepreneurial classes. You just know how to start a company, sorry. But yeah, I think it's a similar kind of thing that I think a lot of it's similar to dancing. With dancing, you have to have rhythm, but you don't have to have rhythm. If you can count, you don't have to have rhythm. So if you can get on the dance floor and you can count, you can bypass rhythm. Timing is the same thing in comedy. You can learn to tell jokes, but you'll never have timing. And so you won't be great. But you might be good. Okay.
questions?
If you got to leave, I totally understand. I don't want to hold anyone. I know people have meetings and stuff.
It's obviously awesome to see so many Indian American comics emerge on the scene. So there's tons of material for Americans, tons of material for Indians, and you put both of them together, it's like a nuclear reaction. You have like 10 times the material. All that is awesome, but do you see a time when the Indian Americans go past their ethnic roots and do secular comedy, and when you see an Indian American, the first thing you imagine is they're going to like tap their ethnic roots? Do you see that going past that ethnic roots and just do awesome comedy like Seinfeld or something? So.
Sort of Asian fusion.
Beyond the
Yeah, sort of the fission kind of thing. I always think that Indian Americans specifically are very good comedians. A lot of that is because we are products of the world's largest democracy and the world's most powerful democracy. So we're sort of free speech squared, right? I mean, we're raised to have free speech, and it's just amplified, right? Which is why I think if you look at some of the Indian American actors, they're okay. I think they're okay. But I think the Indian American comedians are really strong. And I think you're seeing that with Aziz Ansari. I think Aziz Ansari doesn't necessarily do a lot of ethnic humor. And when I say American, I kind of include Russell in that. He's Canadian, but it's the 51st through 55th state, so whatever. It's 30 million people. Come on, it's not a country. So the point is, it's not America. It's certainly not India. But I think that there's the idea that, yes, I think you're seeing that. I think you're seeing people who do mine it. I think that hopefully I try to walk that line. I try to do stuff that I think appeals to everyone, but there's that sweet spot of targeting of saying if you're Indian, you probably maybe get it a little bit more. But I don't think anymore people feel that. The first 2 years that I did comedy, I didn't do any Indian jokes at all, none. And so I don't think it's necessary. But I think we can support Indian American comedians, and I really appreciate the support today and everybody coming out because this is how we do it, to quote Montel Jordan.
I would put in one of my questions in.
Yeah.
So you said that you guys just got married. Thank you for coming here today, Harsha. And I know that there's a funny story behind how you proposed to her. Do you want to tell that story to everyone?
Or do you?
No, you.
Yeah. Okay. So the way you said it, I thought maybe you wanted to tell it. So I thought, okay, fine. Well, I proposed to Harsha on stage, which was kind of cool. I was performing at the Cincinnati Funny Bone, and I was opening for Kevin Nealon, who you might know from Saturday Night Live or from Weeds, and I proposed to Harsha. There's actually a YouTube video of it, so you can Google it or YouTube it and look it up and see that proposal, which is pretty cool. And then I did that in front of Kevin Nealon, and then we had Russell Peters perform at our wedding. So that was pretty sweet. That was a great sort of, comedic arc to the whole thing. And since I had to be the last one to speak, I could say Russell Peters is open for me. So that was kind of the whole idea. But we got married, Harsha's from Austin, so we got married in Texas. And we had a full-on sort of cowboys and Indians wedding because it was kind of great. Because we're Indians, but I'm a cowboy. I'm Hindu. I worship cows. So I really am a cowboy. So.
Okay. We have time for like maybe one more question from the audience.
We exhausted it. It's like popcorn that stopped popping. Rania.
So in terms of in terms of making jokes that sometimes can offend people, I'm just curious about any time that maybe you have made a joke that crossed the line, how you recovered.
I mean, I've bombed many times. I mean, every comedian has. But I'm trying to think if I've done anything that was so over the top that really offended people. I mean, I've definitely had people come up to me after shows and say, wow, that one joke. I mean, actually, there was a joke I did. Okay, yeah. So I was in Chicago, and I was performing with Hari Kondabolu. Hannibal Buress actually was there. Hannibal Buress was our headliner. It was mostly a Desi comedy show. It was an Indian comedy show largely, but we had Hannibal Buress perform, actually, in Chicago. And it was for a women's shelter, okay? So I did one of my jokes that I do that usually goes over really well. It didn't in the beginning because it had a certain. I did the joke where I go, we all have a number on a scale from 1 to 10, and I'm a 6, and I know that, and that's fine. And she's looking at me like, dude, you're a 4. But seriously, the thing is, and I'm Indian, so I've come up with a formula, and the formula is, you can only date and be happy with somebody who's up or down 1 digit from you on the scale. Okay, that's really it is. So if you're a 6, you can be happy with a 5, 6, or 7. Don't ask how this happened. I don't know, but that's the rule, right? So you can date a 5, 6, or 7, but I married a 10, and so at the time I was single, and so I said, but I've dated 10s before. And people go, well, how is that? Well, the thing is, women, you are what you are. I go, if you're an 8, you're an 8, you're beautiful, but you can't go up or down on the scale. We live in a chauvinist society, but fellas can go up on the scale if we're funny and we have money. So I'm a 6 for looks. I'm funny on most nights, so I become a 7. I got some money in the bank, so I become an 8, and that's how I date 10s. And I know some people are looking at me like, yeah, but that's still 2 numbers apart. Right. What I do is I meet a 10, and I break her self-esteem down so she thinks she's a 9. Right? It's funny. See, everybody's laughing. But the room, being a battered women's shelter, kind of went, you know, one of those moments. And Hurry comes back to me backstage and just goes, dude, telling that joke at this place. I go, I know. And I had a couple women come up to me and say, come on, really? I said, yeah, it's funny. I mean, sorry, that's a funny joke. Okay, it's funny. But yeah, I think that was definitely not knowing your audience. And I didn't get to that part of the presentation, but I do a whole thing about knowing your audience.